All right, on this episode of Small Band Big Sound, I want to talk a little bit about live streaming bands. A couple of the pitfalls that I see people get into, one very specifically, and then a couple tricks that I like to use to make your band live stream sound a little bit better. Let's get into it. So if you wind up finding this video useful, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell to see the next one. Live streaming bands. There's one major pitfall that I hear all the time on band live streaming, and that is the pitfall of not having proper gain staging. And if you're not familiar with that term, gain staging is in your live stream, or really anytime you're producing live audio, there's a chain that your audio goes through between when singers sing in the mics and players play, goes into your mixing console. That mix goes in the case of a live stream, out of the mixing console into a streaming device, and then finally onto a computer or laptop where it's streamed onto the internet. At each time the audio moves from one stage to another, anytime it moves from one stage to another, there's an opportunity for overdriving the audio, clipping it, making it sound bad. Some bands have also run into making it being too soft, where someone's on their phone pressing the volume button over and over. I can't get enough volume out of this, and it's the fault of whoever's streaming, not watching their meters, not making sure that audio is at a good signal level for the person listening on the other end. More offensively, I hear bands overdrive the audio at some point. They clip their audio at one of the stages. Either that's at the mixing console or possibly on the streaming device. I'm gonna demonstrate that here. You're gonna want to use headphones for this. You don't have to, but it'll help make especially my effects I'm gonna show you. It'll make that a little bit clearer what's going on. I did not set up a live band. I did not set up a console. But the techniques and the principles are going to apply here. I have a DAW session pulled up with 8 separate band channels and a very a pretty dry mix. This is kind of what you hear from a lot of live streaming bands, because they're just using their live mix more or less, plugging their board in and streaming. They're not really setting up a broadcast mix. And with each channel coming in on the mixer as mono. If you hear my acoustic guitar here, it's a good sounding acoustic guitar, but it's real dry, real mono right down the middle of your head. And of course, when you add a lot of that back in, when you add the whole band that way, it's not bad. The mix is pretty well balanced, but it's dry. It's not very live sounding. But anyway, so what I've done here is I have my 8-channel band, my 8-person band. This submix fader right here is simulating my mixer output on my live mixing board. And the next one, the streaming fader here, is simulating the software fader on whatever streaming device I'm using, whether that's a Sling Studio or a Blackmagic A10 Pro, whatever you're using. This will simulate that. The problem that I hear bands doing is they will screw up at one of these stages, and they overdrive the signal. There's too much of it. What this ends up sounding like is this. Yeah, it's not very good. People don't want to hear that, even if it's not too loud, and it won't be, because the streaming platform will limit the audio volume in any case. It'll just be clipped and unpleasant. It'll be distorted like you just heard. Now, the main way to stop this from happening is to look at the meters of your soundboard, look at the meters of your streaming device, and then use your ears at the end to make sure that it doesn't sound like that. Listen, do a sound check, do a test stream, listen to your audio before you ever send it out to avoid this issue. Make sure it's not too loud, make sure it's not too soft. The other thing that you can do is a little bit of an insurance policy. Put a limiter at each one of these stages. Whether it's the main output of your mixer, you can put a limiter on it that will say, hey, no matter how loud it gets, this isn't going to overdrive. That will not necessarily stop it from distorting, but it'll sound better than not. As an example, if I put a limiter here on my main mixer output and play it again, and then drive this, it's not ideal, but it does sound a little bit better than if I had no limiter there at all. It acts as a little bit of a backstop, a little bit of an insurance policy. So that's another good thing to do. The main point is watch your gain staging. There's no point in live streaming lousy audio. Okay, next thing I want to show you is a couple tricks I like to use to make your dry mono straight down the middle of your head kind of mix sound a little bit better. What I'll do is I'll take my live mixing console, I'll add a stereo delay and a reverb effect, put those in the effects, and of course, send almost every channel to each one of those. The delay to create a little bit of width, a little bit of stereo imagery from mono signals, from single channel signals, and then the reverb to create a little room. You'll hear on my guitar here kind of how this works. Okay, so got the guitar playing by itself. Again, it's a little bit dry. What I'll do is I'll put a delay here, a stereo delay, where the left or the right channel, one is delayed by just a little bit. In this case, 11 milliseconds, or milliseconds, and the right one 60 milliseconds. And you'll kind of hear how this ends up sounding when I put it in. So dry guitar first. See how that immediately freshens it up, gives a little bit of width, a little bit of live sound. So I'll basically use this sort of a stereo delay technique on every channel in varying amounts, except usually I won't add it on the lead vocal or the drums. Bass isn't that important either. But as far as my guitars and my rhythm instruments, percussion, whatever, I like to put a little bit of it in there to widen it out. And you can hear the same thing happen with if I go to the electric guitar on channel 4. It's pretty dry, obviously. I'm sorry, there's the dry version. There's the down the middle of your head version. You add a little bit of stereo width to it. And now hear what happens on the entire mix when I put this in there. A much wider, much more pleasant sounding, spacious kind of a feel for a mix that's all made up of single channel instruments, which as I said, is mostly what you're dealing with live. The next thing I like to do on a live stream kind of a mix is a hall reverb. I'll put some sort of a hall reverb, impulse on there. And the same thing, I'll add a little bit of each channel into it just to taste, to give the live stream listener a sense of the space. I won't do that as much at a live gig because you're in a real room. It adds its own reverb. They can hear the room already. This is to recreate that for your live stream audience member who's not in the room with you. And my general feeling about it is if I have to err on drier or wetter on that reverb, I'll err on the side of wetter. A little bit more reverb for a live stream, I think is better than not enough. And here's how that sounds again. I'm going to use, we'll put both guitars in here just to demonstrate this. Here's the dry version. Now put that reverb in. Gives just a nice, subtle shimmer to the top of the mix. So I add those two plugins in, mix them to taste. and your live stream will sound a lot better. Now here's the whole mix as both come in, and you can sort of hear the difference. So we'll start with the dry, lame mix. Here's the delay and the reverb. So do those things, watch out for your gain staging, add those plugins in, and hopefully your live stream will sound a little bit better than it did before. If you have questions, leave a comment. Excuse me. If you have questions, leave a comment, or if you have a tip that's better than mine, or you have any questions about exactly what I'm showing you here, please let me know, and we will see you next time.